God does not care what you do. And I'll admit, I'm intentionally using jarring language here. And it's jarring, especially if you grew up like me with some religious teachings that taught about a punishing God that cares deeply about what you do, cares so much about what you do that if you do the wrong thing, you're going to burn in hell eternally for it. And these religions would have us believe that that is free will. You know, God gives us free will, but if we use the free will incorrectly, we will suffer the consequences. And consequences imposed upon us by God as a punishment. And again, I did intentionally use jarring language here. So when I say that God doesn't care what we do, I don't mean God doesn't care in an apathetic or pessimistic kind of way. I simply mean that God doesn't care what we do in the sense that God gives us free will to use freely without fear of punishment or retribution. And so again, we are free to do whatever we wish and to experience whatever outcome we seek to experience. But at the end of the day, consequences do exist. Okay, so we don't have to fear retribution or punishment from God, but consequences do exist. In every action, there is a reaction. So there's a lot of religions that would have us believe that karma is this reward and punishment system. And I do believe in karma, but I think that it's more of a mirror than a system of reward and punishment. So what I mean by that is that, like, the universe will reflect back to us that which we are. And that's how the law of attraction works too. It doesn't, the universe doesn't give you what you want. The universe shows you what we are. Psychology or psychiatry refers to this phenomenon as projection. We will see the world as what we are. A hostile person will feel as if they live in a hostile world. A loving person will feel as if they live in a loving world. So yes, the good news that I found through my spiritual journey is that I am able to do whatever I want. I can use my free will freely without fear of going to hell eternally from a punishing God for doing the wrong thing. But that doesn't mean that hell doesn't exist, right? Hell is it's a mindset, and it's based completely on illusion, but it is the feeling, the belief that I'm completely separate from God and the entire universe, and I'm on my own, which produces an extreme amount of fear. And I have lived in such a hell. I struggled with drug addiction for many years of my life, from my teens to my early 20s. And, at the very bottom of that pit that I found myself in, I was completely consumed by fear. And there's two polarities in the world, with fear-based emotions being at the bottom and love-based feelings and beliefs being at the top. When I'm saying negative and positive. And I was completely consumed by fear. I needed my next fix. I needed to stay as high as I possibly could to feel like I was okay with myself. And even then, at the end of my run, at the end of my addiction, even that wasn't doing it for me. The best I could feel was numb. And I was living in a absolute hell of my own creation. And God, or source energy, or the universe, or whatever you want to call that power loved me enough to allow me to experience that self-imposed hell without interfering with any choice that I had in the matter. So it was a natural consequence of living a completely selfish and fear-based life, was the hell that I created for myself, and went against everything that I am at a soul level, that you are at a soul level, that all of us are at a soul level. Because at a soul level, we are all the highest form of love and peace and joy and compassion and enlightenment. And the more we go against that grain, go against that which we truly are, the more hell and suffering we create for ourselves. And God loved me enough to allow me to experience that without interfering with my free will, but stood there ready and waiting and willing to help me as soon as I called out for that help. And eventually I did reach, what in 12-step fellowships we call rock bottom. Once I hit that bottom and I just could not take the suffering anymore, I cried out to whatever was willing to listen and said, I can't do this anymore. Please help me. And as soon as I asked for that help, like immediately I received it. A series of synchronicities and coincidences and unexpected opportunities led me on a spiritual path, put me on a spiritual path that led me to deeper and deeper understandings of myself and of God, of the universe, and to my relationship to everything, and of how life works. So, basically, God loved me enough to allow me to experience the hellacious outcome of my selfishness and my fear-based belief system, and yet stood there waiting and willing to help me and guide me as soon as I asked for help and guidance. And as soon as I asked for help and guidance, I was led to a much more satisfying way of life. And to me, that's not a God of reward and punishment. That is an unconditionally loving God that will give me free will to use freely. And we are all created in the image and likeness of that unconditional love. We are all individuations of divinity itself. And the only hell that we create for ourselves is forgetting that. So not knowing that we are individuations of divinity, and not knowing that we are unconditional love and always taken care of no matter what, that is what produces fear. And the more fear we live in, the more suffering we create, and that suffering is the hell of our own creation. And again, the only hell we create for ourselves is just not knowing that. And we create the experience of heaven right here on earth when we act more and more in alignment with that which we are, which again is unconditional love and peace and joy and serenity and complete enlightenment. So basically, I've come to the conclusion that life has everything to do with what I put into it and nothing to do with what I get out of it. Every single selfish thing that I ever did, I thought on some level that it was going to make me happy. But it only led me to misery and to a hell of my own creation. And when I take myself, my small self, out of the equation, and I focus only on what it is I could do to add to life, how I could serve others, and how I could bring more peace and joy to every situation that I'm in, that's when I experience all those things for myself, because that is what I'm being. And the universe has no choice but to reflect back to me that which I am. So, again, God does not care what you do. Yet God will always stand willing and ready to help you as soon as you call out for that help and that guidance. Hell and heaven and hell are not places that we go for reward or punishment. They are simply states of mind and experiences that we experience here in the flesh on earth. And karma is not a reward or punishment system either. It's simply a reflection. It will always reflect to you that which you are.